I started the Jack Kemp Foundation in 2010, shortly after my dad passed away. It was May of 2009 when he passed away. And you all are here at a Kemp Forum on exchange rates and the dollar. I want to welcome you to the National Press Club, and I'm excited for this discussion. When people think of Jack Kemp, many people still think of football. America loves their football, but a lot of people think of Jack Kemp, the politician, and they think of getting the tax rates down. What they don't always think about, and the purpose for this conference, is they don't remember that Dad cared deeply about international exchange rates and getting to a sound dollar, to sound currencies around the globe, so that people's freedom could be as unrestrained as he believes, and I think we all believe it should be. When I started the Jack Kemp Foundation, we set our mission out to be advancing the American idea. Dad believed deeply in the American idea that was laid out in the Declaration of Independence and that our founding fathers described so well. The American idea is really the human idea, the idea that every person should have a chance to pursue their life, liberty, and happiness in the context of a limited government so that they could be all that God created them to be. At the Kemp Foundation, we've set out to advance the American idea through 3 program areas: the Kemp Leadership Academy, the Kemp Legacy Program, and the Kemp Forum. Our Kemp Forum series covers 3 policy areas: economic policy, foreign policy, and equality of opportunity. I think one of the interesting things is that this issue covers all 3. And unfortunately, it's not discussed enough among our policymakers. This is today an academic conference, but our goal, and the goal of Sean Rushton, who came up with this idea for us, but one that I've cared about deeply because I believe that the unfinished business of supply-side economics is getting to a sound dollar. And Sean said, Jimmy, would you be interested in a project on exchange rates and the dollar? And so when he proposed this idea, I jumped on it. And I want to thank Sean Rushton for his passion, for his interest and his hard work on this. I want to thank Steve Hankey from Johns Hopkins, who is our co-chair and host of this. I want to thank all of you for coming and remind you that the opportunity today is not dissimilar to what was faced in the 80s. And the reason for this conference is that there was political leadership there was political leadership from Ronald Reagan and Paul Volcker to get inflation under control and to get the economy growing. And certainly my father had something to do with that through the Kemp-Roth bill in 1981 that President Reagan signed. We've got a unique opportunity today. There's incredible political disruption here in the United States and around the world. And all of us are watching the events. The policies that politicians need to be considering and thinking about go deeper than a lot of the surface issues that get discussed. Our goal, that I believe we share with you, is to elevate issues that make fundamental difference in how our economies are going to grow and how people thrive. So in the 80s, coming out of the stagflation of the 1970s, you had some incredible leadership. And in 1983, a guy named Dave Smick, who worked on my dad's staff, he was actually my dad's chief of staff, he pitched an idea to my dad. He knew that Dad cared about monetary policy, and Dad was talking about international monetary policy as well as domestic. And he came up with an idea for a conference, a pre-Williamsburg conference in 1983, And there were IMF meetings going on right prior to this conference that SMIC proposed. And it ended up being, the proceedings were published in A Monetary Agenda for World Growth, co-hosted by Jack Kemp and Robert Mundell. And so Steve Hanke, who's also a good friend of Dr. Mundell's, was a natural partner. I want to thank Judy Shelton, who's a close friend and just spent some time with Dr. Mundell, and I'm happy to report that, and she can say this herself, but he's doing a little bit better. Is that a fair way to put it, Judy? And so we wanted to have an event in the spirit of Kemp and Mundell, talking about issues that need attention and need a light shone on them. The world is going through significant financial crises, and certainly we have not answered the problems that arose in 2007, 2008. So the big issue that really is compelling us are the large swings in the major exchange rates when you look at the euro and the dollar. And the impact, the reason why it matters so much is what we talked about earlier. People's ability to make a life for themselves depends on faith, on trust, that the exchange of goods and services is going to be dependable, that it's dependable yesterday, today, tomorrow, and into the future. Because that's what each of us do when we exchange our paper money or our electronic money. So there needs to be stability in these exchange rates, and this discussion is going to be about how we can engage at a time of political upheaval and an awful lot of uncertainty, how we can engage and make this point as clear as possible. I was watching Alan Greenspan on CNBC before I came up here, and I don't think anybody disagrees that these major upheavals in exchange rates are a problem. And so having floating exchange rates, it doesn't seem that that's, when people think about it and talk about it, that is a solution. So what is the solution? That's what we want to discuss. That's what was discussed in 1983. And with a subsequent conference in 1984, Secretary James Baker, the Treasury Secretary under Reagan, is going to speak later on a video about how they got to the Plaza Accord. We believe that something similar is what needs to happen, that there needs to be the collaboration and cooperation between nations that is a path to that stability. So I want to read one more quote from my dad, who you just heard. That conference that you saw, that was from 1994. He was out of government. He was at Empower America. But it was 10 years prior to that they had this conference with Dr. Mundell and Senator Bill Bradley. And certainly one of the key components of my dad's political success was that he was always willing to engage with people on the other side of the aisle, something that we want to encourage as well. So in 1982, my dad said that what is too little recognized is the fact that the pressure for protectionism more often than not originates in a failure of the monetary system. A common and increasingly integrated market requires a common medium of exchange. Therefore, monetary disorders manifest themselves as disruptions of trade. Monetary disorders manifest themselves as disruptions of trade. And those disruptions of trade are what lead to the type of election that we just had here in the US, to what's happening in France. And I don't think there's any doubt that we need to better understand these issues and get politicians to engage at a level that they may not be comfortable with, but we've got to have the discussion. One of the things that Greenspan said is that he doesn't believe it's the job of the Fed to fix these issues. And it's not. We need the administration to understand it. We also need Congress to understand it. But in order for that to happen, people need to understand it. one of the gifts my dad had was that he could make it, he could make monetary, well, he always spoke too long. But he could make monetary policy coherent and make sense to regular people. So that's one of the challenges that we hope to be able to deliver as well. I appreciate you all coming, and next I think we've got a treat. It's because Dr. Mundell couldn't be here in person, we do have a letter that I will read from him to all of you after this video of Dr. Mundell, a collection of his speeches that are noted right there. Please listen to Dr. Robert Mundell.